So the main idea with a microhistory is to take a really narrow slice of an issue, just a single super focused aspect of any larger issue, and study it in great detail. And the reason to do that is to learn something about the larger issue. I mean, that's your chief objective, is to be able to make a comment on the larger issue based on the research that you did on the narrow slice of the issue. The idea kind of tracks with the idea of, well, the way we interpret the world in general. If you take a Psych 101 class, you'll probably encounter the very scientific term of chunking. And chunking is the way that we break down the world into manageable pieces so that we can process it and better understand it. Because we can't take it all in. And the same is true of big issues. We cannot take the whole issue in one bite. Another premise or idea behind the microhistory is that very often we get caught up in the big ideas or the big people or the two main concerns or interests involved in any issue, and we neglect all of the smaller, more individual aspects or ways that the issue affects individual people. So the objective here again is to move to the margins, examine something in great detail that maybe doesn't get the attention it deserves in the larger issue or in consideration of the larger issue, and then take that finding, take that in-depth study of the small slice of the issue and use it to better understand the issue as a whole. Now, the structure of these papers, when you write a microhistory, and it's a type of argument, is a little bit different and a little bit the same as all of the papers you've ever written before. And so I've written up on the board here a quick sketch of what a microhistory structure might look like. This is not to say that it should be a 4-paragraph paper. Each of these boxes are simply intended to designate a section of your paper to help you better visualize what you need to do. So again, it's not a 4-paragraph, or 5-paragraph, or 10-paragraph recommended paper. The way you determine length is the way you should determine length on any essay you write within the parameters of the assignment, and that is based on what are you writing about and what did you find out about what you're writing about, and then determine how many paragraphs and how long it should be based on that. And so if you look here, you have some components that you've seen before: introduction, body paragraphs, conclusion. That should be fairly common to your backgrounds and experience in writing essays before. Where it's going to get specific to the microhistory is in these breakdowns of each section. And so in an introduction for a microhistory, what you want to do is get us ready for your research. You're not making a claim. All you're doing is you're giving us some context about the larger issue, and you're letting us know what your narrow focus is going to be. And the body of your paper is where you let the reader know what you found out. So for our purposes, for this assignment, I've asked you to find 3 primary sources and 1 secondary source on which to base your microhistory. And so your findings will go here. You will explain them. You will interpret them when needed. You will use proper attributions, MLA style, citations. But this is going to feel very informative. Right? Just providing the information for the reader in a way that the reader can best understand it. And then the last section of your paper is the conclusion. And again, a little bit different from papers you've written in the past. Your conclusion is where your claim comes. For a microhistory, you save your claim for the end. And the idea is that it follows from the research that you've conducted and included in your paper. And so after we read your research, the idea is we're ready for your claim and you can deliver it. And in a microhistory, your claim is a statement that answers a question like this: what does the narrow focus say about the larger issue? That's the question you're trying to answer through your research. That's why you've divided the larger issue into a much smaller, more manageable piece. And you really want to find out, that is the whole purpose, what is knowing about this narrow focus let me know about the larger issue? What does it say about the larger issue? So if we take, for example, our theme and the film we watched, Food Inc., you could choose any number of issues from that film. There are many, many issues in that film. But let's say that you watched that film and you decided you wanted to write about processed food. That was going to be your larger issue. A narrow focus for processed food is going to be something like a single ingredient in a single processed food. So for example, if you wanted to write a microhistory about processed food, you would provide some general information about the concern and controversy surrounding processed food, and then you would say, okay, the focus of this paper is going to be Twinkies, and in particular, the use of the processed ingredient high fructose corn syrup in Twinkies. Your research, which can take on many different forms, could be statistics, studies, expert opinion, original documents, interviews, whatever it happens to be, is all going to be about high fructose corn syrup in this example. You might get into the history of high fructose corn syrup. You might get into the chemical composition of high fructose corn syrup. You might get into the very specific thing that high fructose corn syrup does when it's in a Twinkie. Whatever the case may be, your narrow focus guides all of the research that you conduct and all of the research that you include in your paper. And then when you get down to the conclusion, you might determine that processed foods should not use chemical ingredients like high fructose corn syrup. Maybe based on all the research you did, that was what the research said to you. That's what it said when you found out all that information about the narrow focus of high fructose corn syrup and all the research that you did, all the reading you did, all the interviews you watched. You decided what this is telling me about the larger issue of processed food is that processed foods should not use chemical ingredients. Now, who knows what your determination will be? That's up to you. It's up to your issue. It's up to the research you conduct. It's going to be different for everyone. But that's your objective. It's to make these moves, right? To come to this determination as you claim at the end, whatever it happens to be. And that's microhistory. That's the whole point. The whole point is to, again, take a larger issue, find a narrow focus, conduct detailed, thorough research, and then come up with a conclusion or claim about what your research suggests about that larger issue. How does knowing about your narrow focus tell you something about the big picture? And that's it.